Hello, and welcome to the training module on our Business Continuity Plan, Emergency Action Program Plan, and our Floor Warden Floor Searcher training. Completion of this training and knowledge assessment will familiarize you with Kerber expectations for responding to events that may impact us and our organization. Observing, reporting, and immediately responding in an appropriate manner will allow us to minimize and control the potential consequences. Kerber takes its social responsibility for your occupational health and safety and environmental protection very seriously, all while being a fair and attractive employer. This module is designed to provide you the knowledge and competence to appropriately recognize and respond to varying levels of situations that may impact us or the organization. This module will take approximately 15 minutes with the knowledge assessment to complete your training. This training will also serve as a JHA for personnel assigned as first aiders, floor wardens, and floor searchers. If you would like to receive training in first aid CPR, AED, or BBP, or become a floor warden or floor searcher, contact your supervisor and the EHS team. Now, let's get started with the safety moment. For our safety moment, we will discuss teamwork and watch a short video. Being a part of a response team, ensuring our colleagues are safe during an emergency is the definition of teamwork, and one of our core principles of our zero harm culture at Kerber. We take care of each other. As we progress through this training, you will be able to locate and review your roles and responsibilities on the Business Continuity Plan, the Emergency Action Program Plan, and the roles and responsibilities of floor warden and floor searchers. Let's always remember to not become a victim ourselves. These documents are controlled and located on the EQM and all other Kerber controlled documents to include the EHS manual and the associated program. Now, let's watch a short video.
Teamwork keeps workers safe and production high on any job. A team consists of 2 or more individuals engaged in an activity to reach a common goal. You must lend a hand once in a while to prevent or avoid an accident that may involve another worker. Cooperation among departments or team members is important.
Some general housekeeping rules for this training module are, whether you're in the classroom or online, know what to do in the event of an emergency or an alarm sounds. Each of us should always have contingency planning in our mind at all times and locations. Where is the nearest first aid kit, spill kit, AED? Who do I notify and how? The idea behind this hierarchy is that the control methods at the top of the graphic are potentially more effective and protective than those at the bottom. Following this hierarchy normally leads to the implementations of inherently safer systems where the risk of illness or injury has been substantially reduced. Which control is the weakest or strongest, and why? Strongest is the engineering control. Weakness is the PPE. PPE only minimizes the severity of an injury if contacted by a hazard. When responding to an emergency situation, such as a building evacuation, shelter in place, or medical emergency, it is imperative that we risk assess the situation for ourselves and colleagues to immediately gain control of the situation. The hierarchy of controls and our JHA process are good prompts to improve our cognition and respond appropriately to any situation. Our JHA process includes the JHA Form 221 with an accompanying risk assessment prompt on the backside of the JHA. In an emergency situation, we would not have time to stop and document our response. Therefore, we have a documented business continuity plan and emergency action program plan with most likely to occur situations and relevant responses. Additionally, we have roles and responsibilities identified for various personnel. The JHA EHS Form 221 is located on the Electronic Quality Manual or EQM for your review or use. Quick overview of the JHA process. Identify your job steps or what you're doing. Are those hazards associated in the job step? What could hurt you or derail your job step? Evaluate initial risk or risk present without controls in place. Then identify controls. How will you eliminate the hazard or minimize the hazard so you can work safely? Lastly, evaluate residual risk or risk left in the job step after you have controlled it. For responding to emergencies as an employee or first aider, floor warden, or floor searcher, you must do not become a victim yourself. Once you observe or are notified of an emergent situation, spread the word and ask for help. Know your ingress and egress routes prior to arriving on scene. What do you anticipate you will need for the response? Do you know how to respond? Once on scene, assess the situation, remain calm, and gather as much information as you can about the situation or patient. Wear appropriate PPE and high visibility vest. Potential hazards associated with responding to an emergency may be low light impacting visibility, poor housekeeping, smoke inhalation, ergonomic risk factors, force of exertion, heavy lifting or moving of objects, awkward body position, bending or lifting, thermal, heat from a fire, bloodborne pathogen containing material. Only trained and competent personnel to handle BBP containing material. If, while responding to an emergency, you encounter a non-ambulatory employee, immediately notify your floor warden or first aider and inform of location and type of immobility. If you have a question about the JHA or risk assessment in general, refer to the EHS manual or contact your EHS team. Now that we have covered how we will work effectively and safely, let's get into the business continuity plan. Our business continuity plan, or BCP, is a high-level plan documenting roles and responsibilities to take actions to protect company employees and other interested parties, fixed and financial assets, know-how, and organizational reputation. The BCP develops plans for a business to resume partially or completely interrupted critical functions within a predetermined time after a disaster or disruption. Business continuity management is viewed as a higher-level business leadership issue pertaining to the management of the company's supply chain, IT systems, physical security, personnel safety, workspace, and facilities needed to ensure that the business remains viable in the face of a business disruption. The BCP has identified most probable top risks to the organization and developed response plans to these top risks. The BCP is a controlled document and is located on the EQM. Top risks to our Kerber campus most likely to occur are internal fire, adverse weather events such as flood, tornadoes, high winds, hail, thunder or electrical storms, adverse winter weather events such as a snowstorm, blizzard, or ice storm, long lead time materials, theft of information, utility disruption, local transportation disaster. Each of these risks or potential business interruption events have a certain response to control or limit the impact to us and the organization. Crisis management plans. There are 18 specific scenarios that have developed associated plans. Floor wardens and EHS will use relevant crisis management plans for responses calling for building evacuations, shelter in place, or shelter in place in a safe space. Each plan has a step-by-step response to that specific scenario. While there are multiple crisis management plans, There are only two primary responses by us: shelter in place and shelter in place in a safe space, most likely for tornadoes or high winds, and evacuate the building to the nearest muster station for accountability. For building evacuation scenarios, it is imperative that you do not re-enter the building for any reason until given the all clear. We will review the Fire and Explosion Crisis Management Plan to understand how the plan is developed and used. Fire and Explosion Crisis Management Plan. Each plan has a step-by-step response to that specific scenario. Some steps have actions associated with them, and some steps are instructions with no actions. The Crisis Management Plan assists us by providing instructions for actions and record keeping for post-incident review for any opportunities for improvement. When calling emergency services to the DFW campus, use a desk phone and not a cellular phone. Using a desk phone ensures that your call will be routed to the appropriate emergency response center. Responding emergency services will initially go to Building 1, Suite 200B, and be met by a Kerber representative, us, to guide the responding personnel to the location within our campus. Now that we know what the BCP is, let's discuss the Emergency Action Program Plan. Kerber's supply chain is dedicated to the protection of its employees from emergencies such as tornadoes and fires. When emergencies do occur, our Emergency Action Program, or EAP, is initiated. The EAP is in place to ensure employee safety from emergencies during regular hours and after hours. It provides a written document detailing and organizing the actions and procedures to be followed by employees in case of a workplace emergency. The EAP is located on the EQM. The EAP communicates to employees policies and procedures to follow in emergencies. This written plan is available upon request to employees, their designated representatives, and any OSHA officials who ask to see it. No employees are returned to the building until air horns are activated by the floor wardens or emergency coordinators at their muster points, after it has been determined that re-entry is safe by the emergency coordinator. The EAP is written in procedural format. There is a list of acronyms to assist us in understanding what we may hear during communications or reviewing the EAP. Different situations have different alarm sounds. This is extremely important to know the alarm sounds in your work area or client site. At the DFW campus, we have DFW1 with an intercom in the offices and flashing of lights and bullhorns in the production and fab areas. DFW2, we use bullhorns. DFW3, bullhorn and flashing of lights. Employees need to know what to do if they are alerted to a specific emergency. Supervisors must be aware of the locations of those employees working on a particular day when an emergency occurs, as well as suppliers, customers, and other non-employees on their premises. At their muster point, each employee and visitor must be accounted for. Any missing employee information should be provided to the emergency coordinator at the muster station. This information will be provided to the responding emergency services personnel. Emergency coordinators are typically first aiders, floor wardens, and floor searchers. These personnel are on a group chat function along with Kerber Senior and Executive Management to provide and receive information for the duration of the event. For fires observed or suspected on campus or client site, activate the fire alarm first. Then, if the employee determines it is safe to do so, may use a fire extinguisher to put out an incipient fire. Be sure that you do not get trapped by the fire or risk your health and safety to engage the fire. There are campus evacuation route maps posted throughout campus, and you should be familiar with your main and alternate escape route and with your shelter and safe space areas in case of tornadoes or high winds. This module serves as training on the EAP. The EAP is located on the EQM for you to download and review. If you have any questions regarding your role and responsibility in responding to a potential emergency situation, please ask your supervisor or contact your EHS team. Floor warden and floor searchers. If you would like to be a floor warden or floor searcher, ask your supervisor and let the EHS team know. During an alarm or observed emergency, Kerber personnel who are sponsoring a subcontractor or escorting a client are responsible for accounting for and evacuating those personnel. All Kerber personnel shall evacuate the building when the fire alarm or evacuate building command is given, informing all personnel as the evacuation is occurring. No alarm will be disregarded unless a prior specific communication was sent informing to disregard. Treat all alarms as real. Floor wardens are responsible for controlling staff in event of an emergency, explaining, overseeing all emergency actions, and for their area of operations, and working with EHS to staff and train your floor response team. Floor wardens should have relevant crisis management plans printed and readily available that have responses for building evacuations, shelter in place, and shelter in place in a safe space. A floor response team is comprised of floor wardens, first aiders, and floor searchers. Floor wardens, in collaboration with EHS, appoints personnel to the emergency team and fills all vacant positions. In collaboration with EHS, maintains an updated roster of floor response team personnel. Keeps the EHS office updated on any changes in floor response team personnel. Alerts floor response team designees of potential emergencies. Supervises the activities and training of floor response team. Refers training needs to EHS. Responsible for informing and training floor response team in emergency procedures. Ensures that floor response team knows their assigned duties and locations in case of an emergency. Responsible for the evacuation of floor response team. Responsible for notifying stairwell and elevator monitor to evacuate. Last to leave the floor if safe to do so. Floor searchers are responsible to ensure all personnel have evacuated. The searcher ensures that all have in fact evacuated and that there are no injured persons left behind. If a non-ambulatory or a colleague needing medical assistance is found, notify your floor warden or first aider. If you have any questions regarding this training module, the BCPEAP, floor warden or floor searcher roles and responsibilities, ask your supervisor or contact your EHS team.